do we hate the police? If we want to change things, why don't everyone in here, let's go down to the local precinct and join up. Are we going to do it? Who's going to do it with me? Because I'm not going to do it. Right? And why? Why are we not doing that? Right, so we hate them. So we're hating these guys who've taken on this thing. We've chosen the biggest lunkheads in society to protect ourselves from the fuckers in Rikers Island. Because we are scared of them. You know, we are scared of them. We are middle class, libertarian liberals who are shit scared of being raped in prison. So we create the police. And we get the lunkheads who will obey what we tell them to do. They'll actually obey us. Those fuckers will do what we tell them. And we say to them, protect us from those real fuckers, those bikers, and those black guys, and all those awful guys who're going to come and fuck us up and kill us and steal all our stuff. We put the police there. We put them there. And we don't want to go there because we're smart people, we're cool people. We don't want to go and hit anyone. We don't want to go and enforce the law because we don't really believe in it. But we know some poor bastard has to enforce it. Why do we hate those guys? Because we put them there. What is that hate? Why do we hate ourselves for creating this society? Why are so many people in America obsessed with Marilyn Manson, corpses, dead people, misery, John Wayne Gacy? John Wayne Gacy's a fucking prick. You know, he killed a few people and he draws some shitty paintings. What's that? Why is that? And why should we be engaged with that? And yet that has become, what, apocalypse culture? Where do we go from here that isn't that? Where do we go that isn't playing with our own shite? The answer. Back to the individual. If the individual doesn't work, if Patrick McGoon was wrong and number 6 was wrong to stand on that beach screaming, I am not a number, I am a free man, what do we have left? Because ultimately the guy who's not a number and not a free man experiences neurosis the further he goes down that path. I'm sure there's a bunch of people in here like me who eventually, you've worked your way through the stuff, you've read the books, you've done this shit, you've taken the drugs, you've been there, you've seen it, you've experienced enlightenment in little bits. You know what's out there, you know this stuff is true. The consensus doesn't explain our lives. But what does? Imagine getting rid of the individual. Imagine getting rid of that scaffolding. What do we have left? And here's what I'm about to offer. The more I looked into it, the more I began to see that we have these mutants living among us right now. The people from the 21st century, from the end of the 21st century, are here. But there is no context for them. In the same way that if you lived in Tunguska 200 years ago and you were an epileptic, you would be a shaman. There was a context for you. In this society, you're an epileptic. It's quite simple. It's a disease. Nothing you say is of any worth because it's pathology. If, on the other hand, you look at these people who are out there, who are the mutants, and what do they call it? Multiple personality disorder. This is what lies beyond the personality. This is what lies beyond the I, the bullshit. Because if you take I to the limit, and like I say, I'm sure a lot of us here have done this, it becomes, all that happens is self questions self. Endlessly, repetitively, am I doing this right? Is this the right way? Should I think about these people like this? Should I approach them this way? Should I involve them this way? Self questions self endlessly. It reaches a peak, it goes nowhere. On the national scale, that same thing, self questions self, self encounters not self, equals borders, war, destruction. That's where it goes. That thing ends in disaster. It ends in neurosis on the personal level, and it ends in war on the national level. So I began to think, what could we replace that with? And I was looking at these poor MPD fuckers, and I realised they just don't have a context. What would happen if we decided to abandon the personality and replace it with a multiple personality complex? Because as we all know, everyone in here, I'm sure, I mean, I feel as if I can say this for certain, knowing human beings as they are, sometimes you do things that you don't want to do. Sometimes you do things that are contradictory to what you think. Sometimes you fuck yourself up. Why? Because there's not one person in here, there's hundreds. And if you start giving them names, and if you start shuffling them about, and you start playing with them, you become a bigger human being. Because you've no longer allowed yourself to stop at your boundaries. Imagine the personality as, well, let's choose Windows, even though this is a contentious one. Imagine the personality as Windows. Instead of the personality, there's so many people, I'm sure you've met them, you talk to them and say, no, this is the way I am, I've worked on this is me, and I won't change. And you just have to work with that. You know, this is me, this is important, this is what I've come to, and this is what I've made of myself. Bullshit. They're trapped. They don't go anywhere. They're stuck there. What if those same people were then given Personality 2000, which is an upgrade and an add-on? And here's a bit to your personality that likes hip-hop. Here's a bit to your personality that likes ballet. And because we've all got them, and because we've got the serial killer inside, we've got the wonderful new age bastard, we've got whatever we like, we've got James Bond in there, you know, we've got Pussy Galore in there, they're all there. So what I'm suggesting is that we start working with it. Abandon the personality, abandon the individual, abandon the I because it's a lie and it has held us down, it's been like a weight around our necks. It was useful for the last 2,000 years of history because it created this out of the chaos that was. And this is more coherent, more useful, more meaningful. It has its problems, everything does, every system has, but we're getting better. And I think what we should do is walk away from the crap of the 21st century and start thinking about what we've been experiencing. My feeling about the 21st century is, and about World War II and about Auschwitz and all that stuff, is that we had to go through it. We had to do it. That was humanity's dark night of the soul, and it will never, ever happen again. But it had to happen. Every single nightmare image, every image of hell that we have in our minds happened. Everything you can think of happened. People were flayed, brutalised, gassed, tortured, cut into pieces, turned into pigs. Everything you can imagine happened. The world was a wasteland. There were cities completely annihilated. We went through it. Why did we do that? Stanislav Grof has a conception of the perinatal matrices, which was one of the big influences on the film The Matrix, so you might recognise some of this. He says that things that happen to us around birth are really profound and they have all kinds of weird effects. They affect society, they affect the self, they affect everything, they have reverberations. And he claims that there are several states that he calls basic perinatal matrices. The first state is oceanic bliss, which we're all familiar with, I'm sure. Oceanic fucking bliss, man. And that is the state of the baby in the womb, untouched. Everything is provided for, everything is there, everything you need will turn up out of the blue. Basic perinatal matrix 2 is a different thing. It's when the womb starts to turn a little toxic and begins to suggest that we're about to be expelled. And, you know, we don't remember this stuff. What happened? And what was the feeling of that fetus in there who suddenly thinks my entire universe has been overturned, I'm about to be shit out? Doesn't even know where he's going. What the fuck's this? I was happy there, you know, it was cool. I was getting everything I wanted. And so on through to BPM 4, which is this kind of a release from tension, which is the birth process. So I'm beginning to think that, whoa, as a society, and returning to the idea of ontogeny as history, or phylogeny as history, whatever the fuck the word is. What we're looking at now is humanity's process through Grofian matrices. And World War II is actually a Stanislav Grof basic perinatal matrix 3 experience. Every image he talks about, death camps, control, you know, the idea of babies trapped in tubes, you know, you'll recognise all this from the Matrix, as I say. Oil, mechanism, machines that hate us, destructive technology, it all happened. What if this little baby that is the universe, this little larvae that's approaching culmination, has had to go through these stages? Because everything does. If you want to get rid of war, how do you get rid of war? Inoculate yourself against war by having the worst fucking war you've ever had in your life. And everything after that's just an aftershock. There's nothing, we've done nothing worse than what we did in those few years. Humanity has never come close to doing anything like it. We've tried, as a few lunatics have tried. Nothing on that scale. So what if we choose to imagine that humanity has passed through that stage? We've reached the 21st century and we're now reaching basic perinatal matrix 4, which is victory after war, which is the struggle is over, which is we're all here, what do we do next? There was no apocalypse, there was no Christ, there was no rapture, there is nothing, all this stuff is shit. There is only us, and we've still got another 1,000 years, and maybe another 1,000 beyond that, and maybe another 20,000 beyond that. What are we going to do? Who are we? Are we going to stick to these personalities, these bounded, territorial things? Are we going to expand ourselves, make ourselves bigger, so that if you happen to like world music and I don't, I can tap into your love of world music and experience it, and it means something. So all I'm suggesting here is that we all take up magic, because basically it works. We can change the world. It's quite simple. The technology's there. The Buddhists have been telling us it. As I say, people have been telling us this for so long, and in the last 200 years it's been driven underground and we've forgotten, and people like us are here today to try and recover something of that. And the way to recover it is to do it. Do the techniques. Go and buy an Aleister Crowley book. Buy one by Phil Heiner, Peter Carroll, that's more up to date, and you don't have to bother with that 18th century fucking language of that guy. But do the shit, and you will find it works. And we stand here now. This is the counterculture. We are the counterculture. This is like this shit. I went to something like this in 1987. There was Robert Anton Wilson, the whole deal. And I remember sitting in the audience and thinking, fuck, rave is dead. Because it was that kind of thing. So that version of it's dead. The hippie version of it is dead. We stand here and we're looking ahead. What we're going to do. Abandon the personality is what I suggest. Get rid of the sense of self. Get rid of the sense of I, and make yourself something bigger. Imagine that every time you want to learn something new is a new computer program. You can buy the operating system, the update. You can learn to fly a plane in 7 days according to neuro-linguistic programming. So why not? Let's do it. Do we want to change things, or are we just sitting here talking? No answer. Are we talking at all? Do we want to change things? Yeah, right, that's why we're fucking here, man. That is why we're here. So what are we going to do? If you want to change things, the first thing you have to change is yourself. Because if you don't change yourself, you will take on the world as if it's yourself and fuck up. You will really fuck up. Because if you don't understand your own dark side, if you don't understand your own weird, shitty side, if you don't understand the fact there's someone in there who will kill your mother, if need be, if you can't take that on, if you can't take that on board and realise that Charles Manson and me and you are not much different, that John Wayne Gacy and me, you're not much different except that he did it. There's those days where I'm going to kill that motherfucker, but we don't do it. But it's in us, and it's there, and so much of this is denial, that we have no dark side. The hippies and those lovely people in the rave era who were on ecstasy, they tried to pretend we have no dark side, and what happened was they get fucked up by their own dark side, as will always happen.